you explain to everybody how how it started to crumble, how the government started to close in on Jho Low and some other people who are now in jail? But how did it all start to crumble?
Well, I think it first started when Claire Rucastle Brown, who runs the Sarawak blog and was one of the first journalists to kind of sniff out that something was amiss, she noticed that the wife of the former prime minister, Rosmah Mansour, who's a very notorious figure in her own right, sort of an Imelda Marcos, but in Malaysia, she was proposing that every school child in Malaysia, which is a very conservative Muslim country, be mandated to watch The Wolf of Wall Street. Uh, Now, if you've seen The Wolf of Wall Street, you'll realize how inappropriate that is for.
Totally inappropriate. Yeah.
But so Claire starts doing some digging, and already there was smoke about Jho Low, his involvement. Where is this money going? Because the 1MDB fund's been operating for a few years now, and no one's seeing any benefits. No one's seeing any tangible results. So Claire's doing her journalist thing. She's digging through The Wolf of Wall Street, and she looks at the red carpet photos, and who's there on the red carpet with Leonardo DiCaprio and Martin Scorsese, but Jho Low and Riza Aziz, the stepson of the former Prime Minister of Malaysia, Najib Razak. And that's
Mhm.
what the lights went off in her head. And then
Right.
she starts doing some digging. And through her investigations and the investigations of Hokai Tat and his staff at the Edge Malaysia, which is kind of the equivalent of the Wall Street Journal of Malaysia,
Mhm.
they discover that the first big venture that 1MDB undertook with Petro Saudi, a London-based petrochemical company, was actually a complete sham. Um, the so-called prince who had helped set up Petro Saudi was like the 37th prince of Saudi Arabia and was lending his name. And these energy assets in Turkmenistan that Petro Saudi purportedly owned were all kind of fraudulent. This gentleman who's very high up at Citibank and other big American financial institutions was paid $250,000 to give this valuation of these energy assets without even looking at them, without even visiting. And there's emails where he's asking Jho Low's friends, "Oh, what do you want me to value this for, so we can show this fake paperwork to the government of Malaysia?" And the government of Malaysia deposited $1 billion into this joint venture with Petro Saudi, and immediately $700 million of it was diverted to Jho Low's accounts.
Mhm.
And that's when the partying started. And you can literally trace that. Jho Low's right-hand man posted on Facebook, "I felt the earth shake the day that the $700 million was deposited to their accounts." And then they went on an epic spending and gambling spree in Vegas shortly thereafter.
Right.
So this kind of behavior continued. And as you kind of pull the thread, Claire and other journalists were able to receive documents that established this paper trail of the story I just told you
Mhm.
through a whistleblower named Xavier Justo. And with that, the Wall Street Journal got involved, the New York Times got involved, and the Malaysian government got involved. And that was kind of the beginning of the end of it, although there were many more parts, because then the counterattack from the Malaysian government was that Najib Razak, the then prime minister, arrested all his enemies and shut down all the investigations into him, which is what ultimately also necessitated the participation of the Department of Justice.
Right. So that's where it gets interesting. And also, I know in your documentary, there's a big part where you talk about how Najib gets over $600 million deposited into his personal account. And he says there's no strings attached. This was just because of a relationship. And I think that rang a lot of bells for people. And that's where people start to question his intent and, association with Jho Low, right?
Yeah, so I think that should always set off alarm bells when the leader of any country receives $680 million from some shady bank account to his personal accounts.
Yeah.
And now he's saying that that was a gift from the late King Abdullah of Saudi Arabia, which is very convenient because King Abdullah is no
Yeah.
longer with us and can't attest to his role in this.
Mhm.
But actual forensic accounting has shown that the money originated from Jho Low's accounts.
Right.